Okay, so it's excellent connection, and now we can start. So hello everyone, welcome to our today's session, and so today we will have a quick review of the 1.2 and 1.4 assignments about the branching. So I have taken a quick look on the codes of those who submitted, not submitted, but shared it in GitHub. So I had a quick look, and yeah, so for those who managed to do it, there was the approach was fine. Then there were different approaches used, but yeah, so any approach for now which works is fine. What you can apply. I also see that some of you applied additional approaches, for example the cycles. Yeah, the while cycle was used, and let's say better user experience was applied, so that's also good if you try something new. Yeah, also I see that maybe some of you have the issues with monocompiling, then as the alternative you can try to use .NET Run. We will try it together today as well. So we'll see how. Basically, we had this on the first introduction assignment, but right now we can also use it. Actually, there is no real difference for us right now if we use monocompiler or if we simply run .NET, because again for us the main goal is to run the code and see how it is executing. As of now, we're not developing any real applications, so for now the goal for us is to write and then run the code. So yeah, then we'll try a different approach today. So let me open the Visual Studio, and yeah, so we will then quickly go through these two parts. Then we will take a look on the calculator developed last time. So that time we used if statements. So right now we'll basically do the same using switch statements and statement, and then we'll move to the arrays. We actually had a little bit of usage. We used a little bit of arrays. We used arrays a little bit, just in some small points before, but today we'll finally talk about them and we'll see what they are and how to use them. Okay, so let's maybe start with the assignments 1.2 and 1.4. So there we had, actually we can use any folder here. So actually there's no difference if you select or if you do not select the folder. Basically the main thing for you is that so if you open the folder with, let's say, many projects, then when you run the console, the terminal, you will see that you are on the current folder. So to jump into the corresponding project, you need to use again cd and provide the folder name. So let's say I want to jump to the practical branch. Go branch.cs, and now basically I can not CS, sorry. I just have it here first, practical branch.cs, just the folder name. Let's see, sorry, practical branch. So I changed it. Moment. So this one. Copy paste the name. So I changed directory and now I've got the launcher. So there was some typo mistakes. So yeah, and now basically I can work with this folder as before, as if I just simply select the folder from here. So The only difference is that the main path will be the current path we selected from here, but also you can use change directory and then jump to the into the folder, and for now you will execute the commands exactly from this folder. Alright, so maybe right now let's stick with this approach using monocompiler, but then for new assignment we'll use .NET Runner. So let's then start with assignment 2. Let's see this, and then maybe I will take the code tab again. So I will say that value system. Then for the class you can use public class, or you can use simply class at this point. There is no difference for us. We'll see later on what's the difference between public and simple one. So that would be in our further topics. Okay, so for now so we can select what you want to use. So for static void to be name, and this is string. Yeah. So one thing, please don't forget to use the code formatter, because otherwise it's sometimes hard to read the code. So again, Alt, Shift, F, and Visual Studio Code. In other IDEs it may be different. So, and then yeah, so we have this task, so we can provide the input from console. So in this case I will say that, so I can use again parse integer as an option. So first I need to define the time, and then I can use, sometimes safe is there, but okay, so here we go to the int32, then I say try parse, then I provide the input from console, what we will read here, and then I will write the output parameter, which is time. And so that will be the returning parameter of this try parse. And if we can say if the parsing is incorrect, then we can, let's just try again, and this will work. So yeah, then we say that the input is incorrect, and incorrect, and then we can close the program, because we don't have the data to work with here. So yeah, so one issue that was from one of the students, that of using the brackets. Yeah, so as I mentioned to you, as I previously mentioned, so sometimes you can skip using the curly brackets for if or else, for if, else, if, and else statements. So in what cases you don't need to use, you can skip using. Yeah, that's up to you. You can always use them. That's fine. But yeah, I like sometimes to not use the curly brackets, because of just it makes the code shorter if I don't use it. So again, when we can do it, in case, as I said, in case we have only one action, yeah, under if. So in this case, that would be that if I have the code like this, so I have only one action, we can actually determine when the action is finished by just simply seeing the semicolon. Yeah, if you see the semicolon, it means that the action is closed. So in case we have, just roughly say, we have two semicolons here, it means that here we have two actions, so we must use the brackets. Yeah? So if we have only one semicolon, we can say that we have only one action, so this is one statement, and it can be executed. Yeah, so just to roughly say, in theory, we can keep using the brackets even for such cases. Like here we have some kind of statement, yeah, that returns true or false. Then we have something different. And yet again, I mean, just imagine there are the statements which return true or false. Yeah. So then you can have something like this, and then you can have the execution statement. So in this case, this is correct because here under this if you have another if which has another if and which has one statement only. So in this case, you don't need the brackets because at the end you have one statement here. Yeah. So for if is not considered as the statement, as the action. Yeah. So maybe I'm not really correct from the term perspective, but I guess more correctly would be that if we say that this is the action. Yeah. So if you have one action, then you can skip using the brackets. Yeah, of course you can do it like this, and after each if you can do it, but if you have one action only, then you can skip using it. Also for else, then you can have something like this. Yeah. So instead of true, again, you can have something like the real statements is just for the example. Yeah. Something like this. Yeah. So for else, you also don't need to use the curly brackets in such case. If you have one statement only. Yeah. If you have more than one statement, something like this, then you should use. Yeah, otherwise, this will be considered as the statement which is outside if. Yeah. Of course, this will work, but it will be outside if. So in this case, you need to provide the information to the code where you want to start this else statement and where you want to finish. Yeah? So it says that here's the start and here's the finish. Otherwise, if you don't provide it, then it considers the start as exactly after that, and then the finish is once it reaches the semicolon. So that is about the brackets. So again, if you're not sure, you can use the brackets. That's not the problem. Just up to you. All right. So yeah, here we now can do a return statement, and so now we can then check the time. Yeah. Also, one more thing. What we can do exactly right here. So we can use or statement. So it means that if the parsing is wrong, or the time is less than 0. Yeah, in this case, so it's also incorrect because time cannot be negative, right? That's also one more thing, and in this case, you can actually see. So for you, that's maybe a little bit confusing because the question for you may be how the time can be checked if this part is incorrect. I mean, if the parsing is incorrect, what kind of time can be checked? And this is what I mentioned to you once, that if we have and or statements, so for example, if we have or, then it means that one of the conditions we have here, so we have one condition, here we have another condition, they both return true or false, right? So, and if we have or, it means that if one of them is true, then the whole if statement is true, right? And so in this case, if the parsing is incorrect, if we have the issues in the parsing, then this returns true, okay? And it does not check this parameter. Yeah? So in this case, we are safe that this will not be checked if there's a parsing issue. Yeah, the same as for AND. Yeah, for AND we have we need to have all the sides to be true. Yeah, so for AND, again, if the left side is false, then the right side is not checked because there's no need to check the right side. For AND, yeah, this is OR. For OR, we can check both sides. Yeah, but if there's no actual need to check the right side, then it will not check it. Yeah, so in this case, we are pretty much safe. And yeah, so now we need to check the time. So and here we can start if 10 is less than 12, then we can print the good morning sunshine, right? Double check. So, double check what was the text here, just to be sure that's good morning sunshine. So if it's smaller than, so it's not said that it should be smaller or equal. So we'll do it like this, and then we say good morning sunshine. Then we say else if, so now we can use else if, and if time is between 13 and 19. Oh, hold on. Or smaller. Okay, so there's no check for 12 for the time which is between 12 and 13. I guess we cannot just not confuse you, so we can say that the time should be greater than 13 and time is less than 19. I guess there is a typo in the assignment. It should be like this, yeah, but just not confuse you. Let's maybe do it like this, yeah. So let's say that in between 12 and 13 there is lunch break. So in between, I know actually if it says in between that, I guess we should include 13 and 19. So this will be like this, and then we say, so let me copy this right one statement, and here I say good afternoon, more heart. Okay, so here it is, and then we put it here, and then we have another else if statement, and here it will be actually I can have else maybe in this case and see why. So then I have else statement, and then I say good evening, get some rest. So this will look like this, and I pause statement. And yeah, for the check if the time is greater than 24, then we can also say add another or statement, and here it will be that we check if the time is greater than 24. So that's also the not correct input, and that's why we say in this case that the input is incorrect. Okay, so now this is done, and now we can move to the next task. So let's maybe double check if maybe something is missed. I guess no, right? Yeah, so now we can change that variable and now we can test it. So let's maybe test it. Then we'll have this one. That's assignment 2, yeah? Okay. Assignment 2. So we compile it. It should be compiled. Let's check. Okay, so now it's compiled and I can run it. Assignment. So now I can provide. Oh yeah, I forgot to ask user to enter. So maybe let's send it. This case here. So yeah, in this case I had no input because I did not print anything. So then let's write 9. Please provide the time. So I know the time will provide the time then. Okay. So that's about it. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And yeah, so now we can move on with the fourth assignment. So that was a bit different. Again, maybe I will copy paste this part, the top. So that's just a basic signature. For some classes we'll see that we don't need this main method. That's only needed for the classes, for the classes you need to run. In this case, basically just simply create the class, then we run it, but sometimes there may be multiple files used, and for such cases there's no need to create the files. You'll create the main method just for the runner. So that's the starter of the program. So then let's create the assignment. Instance. And yeah, so here we have our signature. And now maybe I will take a code from one of the students provided. So yeah, there are actually different options. Yeah, now I will just copy paste the code from one of the students. Alright, yeah, so you can also use such syntax to concatenate the strings. That's also fine, yeah, so you need to use the dollar sign, and then you can use the curly brackets and then include the variables inside. That's fine. Yeah, so so one thing, so one of the students also asked me what should we do in case there are 366 days in the year. So in this case we can have one small trick. So then maybe let's try this. Let's insert day of the year. So then we will run again. In this case, yeah, we have parse, but so maybe we can also check if the parsing is correct. So again, as usually, we can use this. I can use int, but in this case, I suggest to use not int, but int32. That's actually the same, but we'll later on see why from the readability point of view it's better to use such full names. And yeah, actually we'll see that's because for C#, these are just short names of these classes. Yeah, these are actually the classes, and so we normally call the methods from the classes and not from the primitive types, and that's why just to follow the usual syntax, you may be better use the classes. Yeah, the class, and let's read the class, full name of the class, int32. Yeah, so and as usual we will try to parse, provide the input, and then it is to be written there. So it's not needed, and of course parsing is incorrect. Or yeah, we can also say that days is less than 0 or is less than 1. Or also we can say that days is greater than. Actually, there is one thing we need to clarify how many days there are in the year. So then we can maybe also put one more thing. the days, let's say year days. Year days, please insert the year. Please enter the year. Enter the year. And so the user will provide the year. So then it will be here, and we will then find it here as well. And so obviously we will also check if the year is not year days but year. So that we'll start with the year, and then we'll calculate how many days there are in the year provided. So the year cannot be negative. So so there are no more rotations. So then we can simply write that the input is incorrect. So what the input is incorrect, and then we return finish the program. Yeah, so now we have here, and now we can calculate the how many days there are in the year, if this is long or short year. Let me double check. Yeah, week here. So let's so let me check the form. I guess we should divide by 4, and if the remaining part is 0, then this should be the long year, right? Yeah, I guess so. So then it means that if year modulo check this way, modulo 4 equals 0, then it can be divided by 4 without any remaining part. Then we say that so define year days. Then we can also say that there are 366 days. Otherwise, there will be 365 days. Yeah. So in this case we can check it, but for the full formula there will not be much difference. So here again we can check if the number of the days is correct, and if it's not correct, then we say that the input is incorrect, and then we will stop the program. So, and yeah, what's the trick for the, so that's already checked, and now we can check the things here. So you can use if else if approach, but yeah, so the question is what can you do for the long years. So and here the situation will be quite simple. So the tricky thing is that we can actually change the value of the days. So and how will it work? So we can say if the day is after February. So in this case, it means that almost everything will be the same, but the day will be the same minus 1. So in this case, the calculation will work the following way. So if we say that the day is less than, so we have 31 days in January, and so we say 28. Yeah, so until this part, everything will work the same for the long and short years. So and yeah, then we say if it's greater than 31 plus 28, then we just simply decrement days. And yeah, so first we're gonna need to check if the year days equals 366. Okay. And we are after, so if this is down here and the day provided is after February, after 28th of February. So in this case we can use this trip, because the calculation what it's saying, I would just simply say that there's, in this case we can say that there is no 29th of February, and we can actually consider 29th of February the same way as we consider 28th of February. In this case, the program will consider 29th of February as 28th of February. Yeah, and all the other logic will be the same. So let's maybe then check it. Let's try to compile the code. And then we will execute it. So the year would be, let's say, 2021. 2021. Then the day would be, let's say, 230. And this is August. Yeah, so so the question from Anastasia, so what that means decrement, yeah? So that is the same as if we say that days equals days minus 1. Yeah, so that's the same. As you remember, for increment we have days plus plus, and that means that now we assign, we have days equals days plus 1. Yeah. That's for incrementing, and then the same works for decrement. Yeah. Just the shortcut of this variant. Yeah. So we just simply add 1 to days, yeah, and this will be just increment. And the same for minus, it will be decrement. Yeah. Just such approach, and yeah, so as you remember, we have this postfix increment decrement or prefix increment decrement. So in this case, this will not maybe this will work. But yeah, so this means that in this case there's no difference if you type like this or like this, because you have one statement only. And so I showed them before. What's the difference between postfix increment and prefix increment decrement? But yeah, in this case there's no difference. We'll just simply increment by 1. Okay, see, we are starting the question. Okay, yeah. Any questions? Please let me know. Starting. When you enter 21, does the computer know how many days there are in this year? So yeah, this is what I say here. Yeah, here we check it. So if modulo, it means that division year division by 4 gives 0 as the remaining part. Yeah, so it means that the number can be divided. Actually, yeah, as you may know, there are some exceptions for the years that are between the centuries. I don't remember this exception, Yeah, so this may be not 100% correct, because in Gregorian calendar there are the years where even if they can be divided by 4, they are considered as short years. But at this point maybe you can check it by yourselves in the internet Wikipedia. I don't remember this rule for the years, but yeah, for us maybe it's not really important. If you want, you can check out the exception for the long years. Yeah, I guess that the year 2000 was not the long year. Yes, I remember, but I don't remember this exception. No, I just simply know that if we divide by 4 and have 0 as the remaining part, then okay, yeah, this is more simple. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, but yeah, there's one more exception about the leap years. Two exceptions. Yeah, there are exceptions. Maybe let me quickly. Yes, I guess that was the rule. So that was the rule. Is that if the year is divisible by 100 and not divisible by 400, then we skip this here. Okay, but actually we can then check this rule as well. So then we can say if the year is divisible by 100, so it means that the case 0. Let's add, yeah, please add the brackets, otherwise the program may not understand what is the sequence of the operations we use, because we have actually 2 operations here. So this is the operation and this is the operation. Yeah. So just to not confuse yourselves and the compiler, it's better to use the brackets, and then it will actually it will actually understand that you have the corresponding sequence. So just make it more precise. Okay, then you have this one. So if it is divisible by 100 and not divisible by 400, then we can then write it this way. Not divisible by 400. So that means that if it's indivisible, we say like this, yeah, not equals to 0, and then we skip this, yeah. So in this case, we skip this. We say this one. Yeah. And then here we can apply else if. So again, if this is triggered, then else if will not be checked. And so yeah, maybe I will also add this comment here. Just copy paste it from Wikipedia. So I will add this comment here. So I can then split it into lines. So let's add this comment here, and so I guess right now everything should be fine, and the rule is fully then applied. Right, okay, so let's then make it then double check. So we compile, then we execute it. Cement 4.exe, and then we say that the year is 2000, I guess. That was skipped, right? 2000 November. And the day is, so that's 31 plus, let's try 29th of February, so it means that this would be 16. And okay, so that means that this February, was it correct? So a moment again, was the year 2000 the exception? Oh no, 2000 was the leap year. I'm sorry, then okay, then I can say check 2019, 900, so that would be Year 19, so this would be, again, let's run 4, 7, 4. And then let's enter this here. And then let's enter 60 again. And yeah, now it's March, so that's correct. And maybe it's already, we can skip the printing of the day. So this is maybe not needed. We can actually do it, but at this point, I think it's not so important yet. Just to not confuse if we have the leap years. We just comment on the code. Because yeah, in such cases it may be confusing if we have leap years and then we then have the day minus 1 provided. Okay. So. Then yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, also the question from Anastasia. Yeah, maybe can you also please use code formatter, so that's again Alt-Shift-F, because otherwise that's maybe a little bit confusing. Moment. Yeah, so sometimes you will see unreachable code, and this means that yeah, no problem. So this means that you will have unreachable code, and okay, so double check. Yeah, maybe I will then check your case Anastasia. I guess actually, sorry Anastasia, maybe can you copy and paste the code here, so maybe we can check together. This is fine for you. I mean, so I can just simply copy paste the code and then double check it. Anastasia, can you do it please? Yeah, thank you. So I can now execute it. Let's find this way. So we can copy paste this code. Okay, something if you have any issues, then please let me know. We can check them together. So let's try again. Okay, so we see the error. So it means that okay, the number is not defined here. Yeah, so don't forget and sorry, yeah, there will be or. No, like that, yeah. So don't forget to use them down here. It doesn't print out. Okay, that's fine. Then we then do it here. Oh, so that's 4.2 CS. Okay, so seems that everything is fine. Maybe have you saved your code? Yeah, so there's maybe a possibility that you forgot to save your code. So just because in my case that is compiled. Code is shared just with me. So maybe, yeah, sometimes please make sure that your code is saved, because otherwise then you will not get the recent version of your code, and of course it will not be compiled. The last version then won't be compiled after that. Okay. So please then check, yeah. Okay, so that's it about the current assignment. Yes, sorry, Anastasia. There are two Anastasias, maybe more, I guess. No, we have two Anastasias. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, just something else, maybe confusing. Oh yeah, so when I forget in the end of when I get the unreachable code, yeah, that's also maybe, so don't, yeah, so for semicolon, it should always be placed under the action time, yeah, because again, if is not considered as the action, that is just to do the branching, but if you call the method, or in this case, if you stop the program, this is considered as the action. Okay, so any more questions about the assignments? Okay, then if not, then we can be just then not adjust, but create the calculator using switch statement. So maybe let me copy paste the code created for the calculator. So that was this one. So copy paste the code from main method. And then, as I promised, maybe today we'll try a little bit different approach. We will then so let me create a new .NET project, and then we'll use okay. So moment change. So just yeah, this command. It was fully okay, then maybe let's just in case you want to go back to the previous level, you can that's not correct. Okay. Let's try again. So okay, now I just opened that now. Okay, so now under practicals, I can create new folder here. Oh, not here, sorry. It's here. Then select the wall. That's all. Okay. Now I can create the folder. Let it be calculator. So I'll simply create the. So then I need to call to this folder. So I'll say that I changed the directory now I'm on the navigate folder, and so now we can create new project. Oh no, hold on. .NET new console. So basically that's different approach. We'll then maybe use it a little bit later, but for now you can select what's better for you. You can use .NET, you can use Mono compiler, that's up to you. So you'll have this program generated here. Actually, if you want, you can delete it in here. There is no actual difference. Yeah, now let's maybe copy paste the file from here. Yeah, so in this case we'll not use Mono compiler. That's basically the main difference for us at this point. Yeah, so now we have this calculator. And okay, let's try to run it from here. So use command.NET run. Listen to it namespace. Let's double check or not. So now it can automatically detect which class contains main method. So in this case we have this main method here. So then my computer may be a little bit slow, just because it's a little bit overloaded. Oh yeah, so now it works fine. Yeah, so now we just do the same but without Mono compiler. Simply Mono compiler. Simply .NET. Just without creating of executable file. Without creating an executable file. Okay, that's up to you what you want to use. Right here, so right now basically for us the only goal is to run the program. Yeah, this is what I said. So and now let's maybe use switch statement instead of if, so that would be quite easy, I guess. So in this case you need to check which operator you want to use. So then I say switch, I switch by operator, so here I provide the variable, okay, which I want to check by, and then I will go inside. So let's define the beginning and the end of if statement, or switch statement. And right now we can modify what we had was if, so that will be case multiplication. Then this part will be executed, and then we will break. Okay. Oh, hold on. Okay, then maybe let's have another case, and then we have division here. Okay, so then the result will be this one, and then we add break. Then we have this case, and then addition. Then we have this break. And then we break. At the end, then another case. And then the result will be folded. Else here. And then I have another case. Choose the module. And then I have else, which in this case would be default case. And in this case I can skip using them. The brackets, and because we have 4 cases, we don't need brackets. So it will just simply determine the end of the statement using the break. If break is not reached, it will not be closed. Okay, so and then we can print the result. Let's then try and see how it works. .NET run. And so in this case you don't need to manually recompile the code. That's the advantage of this approach. And so we can simply run. Okay, so we have the errors. Okay, so it says that yeah. So let's break now. Sorry, forgot one break. .NET run. So because the break was missed here. Let's try again. Okay, another issue. Yeah. So we actually explicitly convert string to char. So and where do we do it? It says line 32. Yeah. So here is important to use the correct quotation marks. Because for strings we use double quotation marks, for characters we use single. That's important. Let's then compile it and run. Run. And now we can then try to do the, let's say, addition. So now everything works fine, yeah? So basically we implemented the same calculator but using the switch statement instead of if. Yeah? So that's basically how we can use switch statement. So we provide the variable, so basically which has the value, so we check the value there, and then we compare the value to the following cases. If one of the cases is matched, then it goes under this case, otherwise it goes to default and then this case is executed. So, any questions about switch statement? So, okay, if no questions, then there will be some points as a part of homework from this practical assignment. So this will be I just closed it. It's here. So then this will be 1.3. So here you need to print the date the corresponding way. Then so the second part you can fully then implement it. So these 3 parts, then you can do it. So then this will be a home task, and so then the deadline, right? So the next one is until 26th. So then, so maybe let it be the 2nd then, okay? The 2nd of August. Sorry, the August. Time flies. Okay, so then will be practical assignment. I mentioned just simply the assignments. Assignment 1.3. Then this will be 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. From the following file, from this file. Okay, so are there any questions? But if you have any questions, then please let me know. And again, about the compilation, so you can use Mono, you can use .NET, both options work fine. But yeah, the only thing for .NET Runner, so if let's say if you create 2 files, so maybe what we copy. So in this case, it will be confused. Let's also change the class name. So in this case, it will be confused and it will not understand which class to run. Yeah, because the problem will be that it has starter method in both classes. Yeah, so in this case, it will not understand which class to run, and we will see this compilation error. If we delete one of the classes, then it will work. And so for .NET project, you can actually use one runner class. Yeah. So that's the disadvantage of this, but the advantage is that you don't need to compile your program every time. So that's okay. See, I missed that or something. Show how works that run. Oh, I don't know that. Oh yeah, for code run, I did not really set up it on my Visual Studio Code because yes, I had some issues with the scripts, so then we just not waste the time. So a moment. Okay, so now we can select the environment. Okay, it asks for the JSON file. For some reasons, a moment. We run again. Run code. Yeah, I guess I had some issues with the scripts. So Elena, I assume that you use Mac computer, right? So that's why. Yeah. So for Mac you can use Brew. To be honest, again, I did not try it to install on Mac, but so there may be some issues with the scripts there, so I can install scripts correctly. Okay, so now let's copy in a moment. What's it? let's see what's the output. So I'm not really sure if it will run, because yes, there are some scripts issue. Maybe let me check it again. Yeah, okay, it's it did not show any output. Okay, then yeah, that's maybe related to the script. I guess for now we can skip it. That's just an additional. If you maybe have a little bit time to do the setup on the scripts, then you can try it. But for now, I guess you can be better skip it. Because it will require some additional setup on scripts, and maybe this will take some time. We can maybe right now spend in that way. But yeah, if you want to check, you can try to search for the scripts issue you have. But so yeah, maybe if I have time, then I will also check what's wrong with my setup. So, but okay, then we can maybe do it a little bit later. Okay, so for now, let's maybe have 10 minutes break, and then we will start with the presentation about the functions and arrays. So let's make it. Okay, so let's so one moment and we will start it. Okay, so let's continue. So yeah, if something is not clear for you, and you do not understand any concept, you can briefly reach me. Then I will give you the comments after the session. So just any time. Write me and let me know if there is something not clear for you. So okay, then we can move on. And yeah, so today we are going to talk about the functions, arrays, and loops. So I'm sure if we cover all the topics today, but we'll definitely start. So first of all, let's start with the functions. With the functions and basically what we consider as the function. So from the programming point of view, it means that this is the, let's say, set of actions to be done. Yeah, so the set may also return something. So for example, we say, please go to the kitchen and make coffee, go back, and take me the coffee. So that will be the function. We say we have a procedure, so procedure which provides us the path, which sets the path to the kitchen, and then also the creation of coffee, then the path back, and then just returning the coffee. So that's the function. The set of basically the one exact procedure defined using the multiple actions. Yeah, so for now we just we can also say that for now we use for each program we use one function. So for example, here we have one function where just this procedure is executed and that's it. Yeah, nothing more is this procedure is executed and nothing more. Yeah. So in this case, this will be, from a programming point of view, this is considered as one function. But so let's say that we can split our code, we can split our main execution into different such parts. Yeah? Like we say that we start. Of course, we need to have a starter, as I already said, starter point of the program. But so our program can actually use many different functions. Yeah. So so why it is actually needed? So for programming. So for example, let's say that for the programming of the robot. Yeah. So here we have example that we want to include. That in theory, let's imagine that we can. If we want to define the program for the robot and to explain, to define what it should do. And so for now, just maybe on the top, we know what the robot can do. So the robot can find a ball, it can kick a ball, and stand up in case the robot falls, and so on. So we may have some different actions what robot can do, but yeah. So what can happen? So it may be searching for a ball several times. So in this case, from the programming point of view, we may have the issue, because in this case, so first of all, we don't know how many times it will search for the ball, right? So it may search for just, if it may search for one time, yeah, so in fact this should be defined as the set of actions. So in this case we can say if this procedure will be executed once, or it will be executed more than once. So there are some dependencies on which which number of this executions depend. And so in this case, so the first issue is that we don't know how many times this will be executed and what are the dependencies there. So and then again, but we know the procedure, and so we know that the robot can search for the ball, and the robot can find the ball. Yeah, so in this case we have this procedure which can be programmed in some way. Logic can be defined. And yeah, so the key point here is the reusability. Yeah, because again, robot is quite dynamic thing. We cannot simply say that please do these, let's say, 5 actions and that's it. For robot case, it's quite dynamic field. Yeah, so it means that it can actually be based on some conditions, as I said, and the procedures may be repeated. Yeah, so in this case, if we can define these procedures, if we can define these functions, then we can actually reuse them. So the key point here is that we write one part of code once, and then we can reuse it multiple times. Yeah, so that's basically the key point for the functions. And also to make our code better, because otherwise if you just simply just write from top to down one exact code without splitting it into different functions, then it's from practical point of view it's quite hard to read it. That's why we use functions, and let's now go deep in what the functions are in simple words. So yeah, so we can actually consider the functions as the part of the algorithm, of course, because I mean everything what we do, everything what we code is based on the algorithm. So we actually, when we write a code, we define the algorithm, right? And so yeah, for the algorithm we can have some sub points to be done, and yeah, these subtasks, yeah, we can call them as subtasks, and they require several steps. So for example, complicated subtasks may even have more subtasks, so it means that we should have a deeper role, so the subtask will have the subtask of the subtask, and so on. And so to reduce such complexity of the code, to structurize the code better, we use the functions. And yeah, so this procedure in general is called abstraction. Yeah, so it means that basically we already used abstraction. So for example, like in this case, yeah, maybe let's check this case. So here we have the methods try parse. That's actually the function here. That's quite, I would say, not quite synonyms, but for now maybe let's consider function and method as the synonym. Yeah, so we have the function try parse. Yeah, so actually the question to you, do you know how does it work? Do you know what's the logic inside this function? Basically how this function, I mean from the technical point of view, how this function works, what are the actions there? Do you know? No. Yeah, because, I mean, of course, if you maybe export it, then you may know, but in fact what we are just worried about is that we have this function, we know how to use it, and we know what the result we can expect from this function, right? So based on the input we provide here, so we can get the value, the returning value. Yeah. So, and that's basically what the abstraction is. Yeah, the key point here is we don't know from a technical point of view what is the code behind this try parse function. Actually, it look like this, but yeah, but actually we don't know. We don't know, and that's the key point. That's the abstraction. We don't know how the function works, but we do know what we can expect and how we can use what we can expect from this function and how we can really use it. Yeah. And yeah, so we call it as the function or a method. Yeah, maybe it's not really correct to say that the function is the same as the method, but again, for now we can actually consider them as the same thing. Okay, so any questions so far? So about the concept, we'll go then through the syntax and definition of the bit weighter, so don't worry, we'll recover them. But yeah, so for now, again, the key concept is that we have the procedures, and then we use these procedures. Again, the procedures can be not defined by us, like in this case here. That's not me who actually defined this function, this method. It is defined by someone else, but I see the documentation of this function, I know how it works, and I simply use it. Nothing more. Right. So okay, if that's clear, we can move on. And yeah, so the thing, as you may already understood from here, that we have some kind of input to the function, and we may have, yeah, of course, some functions do not ask input, and that's mostly related to object-oriented programming. We'll talk about a bit later. So yeah, so maybe if we jump a little bit to object-oriented programming, maybe that the robot as the object has the functions, has the method, and we can define such thing that, not define such thing, but call the function from robot, that the robot goes sleep. Yes, in this case we will have the object robot, and then we call the method from, we'll see that we can call the methods from objects, and then the method will be go sleep, and then we say that and then the robot will go sleep. So that will be the method we call from robot, and then no return is needed and no input parameter also needed. In this case, just simply method call without any parameters to input and without any parameters to output. We'll see this case, so don't worry, that's just a simple example. Yeah, so a function allows us to encapsulate a piece of code and code from another part of the code. So again, the same works with this method again. It's encapsulated. We don't know actually how it is called, how it is defined. I mean, what's the code behind this function, but we know how it works. So again, in this case, it's not written by us, but in fact, something similar, we'll see later, can be written by us. So I can create such function somewhere in my code and then call it, for example, from here. And in this case, there will be, so again, if this is code written by me, of course I will know how this code works from a technical point of view, but so we can consider this as encapsulation, because it's created somewhere else, and at this point I don't really think about how the logic for this procedure looks for me, even if I created this procedure, this function, called procedure, function, this method somewhere else. Yeah, you may very soon run into a situation where you need to repeat a piece of code. This is what I said. You may have to have some part of the codes, which some blocks, some parts of the code, some blocks of the codes which needed to be repeatedly called, repeatedly executed in your program. And again, the simple solution would be that you just simply repeat, copy, paste this code, but again, from the programming point of view, copy pasting is not the best approach, especially for object-oriented programming. We'll talk later about. Yeah, so that's why we want to. Yeah, so from programming point of view, one thing for you to know that in programming we try to write as less code as possible. I mean, not less from the syntax point of view, because nowadays in lots of programming languages you may see shorter syntax available, like for example for ifs, as we seen last time. Yeah, if we have question marks for ifs, then we can also use such approach. Yeah, of course this makes code shorter, but so I mean when I say smaller, shorter code, then I consider that it's conceptually shorter, not syntax is not shorter from the syntax point of view. And yeah, so we can achieve the shorter code if we, for example, use the procedures, use functions. So how the functions, basically the methods, are can be defined. So first of all, we'll see seeing the visibility. So it can be public, protected, private, and also no visibility. That means that this is default one. So that's the first keyword to be used. Then we provide the returning type. It means that this is the type of what the method returns. Then we have the name of the method we define, and the function, and then we provide the parameters. Then we provide the list of the parameters this method can be used, and inside this method we can actually type the code. Okay, so in this case, as an example, I can create the method. We'll start with static methods. Later on we'll see what will happen when we don't use statics, but at this point we'll use static method, and then we can define it this way, and I'll say that this will be boolean. So this will return boolean value. And then I provide method name. So this would be let's say I'm going to do it this way. Validate number. Validate number. And yeah, so here we can provide, let's say, for example, the input. So that's the type, the parameter we provide. The input from console. And then we can check if the value is correct. So I can in this case that's not the best example, so maybe let's then do it under the calculator. That's fine, sorry. So we'll check the operator, validate operator, and in this case we will then provide what's the operator provided. Let's say character operator provided, and then we will validate it. And so in this case Now, so in this case, then we can check if simple if operator provided is not multiplication and it is not addition and it is not division, for example. Let's say and it is not subtraction and it is not modulo. Then we say that, then we return false. It means that the validation is not passed, or else we return true. So since we have the returning type here, it means that something needs to be returned from the method. Yeah, otherwise, let's say if we don't have else statement, this will not work because we have the case from this method point of view which will not return us any result. The result must mandatorily be returned. So that's why if we have if else, then it means that one of these parts, I mean if this part or this part will be executed. So it means that the method will return us false or true. In this case, again, we have the case, so when this if statement is false, when the return statement is not executed. But if we have boolean type, if we have returning type, if we have void, then it's fine, nothing should be returned. But if we have boolean, then at least something, boolean needs to be returned, needs to be mandatory return in any case. So in this case, then we have this one, and so maybe we can then we can then check. So their operation is validate operator. So if we say that validate operator is false, so then we have this operation. So we say not if the validation is not passed, then we can maybe write that the operator is incorrect. And then we close the program. So let's check this one. So. It's running. Now we can enter the value. So let's say that we entered the correct operation, everything was fine. And let's enter the operator which is out of this list. So that would be, let's enter the value. The operation would be something like this. And then this procedure, this function returns false, and then validation, and the validation is not passed. Yeah. So basically, we execute this part of code. We execute it from here. Yeah. So that's the example where how the method can be used. Yeah. So in this case, we just simply call this procedure. If you want to navigate here, you can use Control, then click. Control plus click, left click. Now you can navigate to the corresponding function. Okay. that means we get to the corresponding method function. So yeah, and then we provide the parameter here. So there's the parameter. We can provide multiple parameters here. We'll see how we can provide them. They are provided sequentially, and so the parameter is provided, and then the parameter is here. It is provided here. The value is assigned to this parameter, and then yeah, the value will be used here. Then we can actually use this value again provided from. In this case, this will be provided from here. Okay, so here we have the value. We pass the value to this method. We receive it here. And we use it here, and then calculate the result. At the end, we return the result if it's false or true. Using boolean, and then it is received. It is received here. And so here, this returns true or false from that operation defined above. And then if it's not true, so then we execute this part of code and then we return the statement. On practice, such validations can be done using try-catch statements, but yeah, this will be a future topic. So that's just one example. It's one of the examples, and let's jump back to the presentation. So yeah, in code, to call a function, we just simply need to write the name of the function. So if the function is from the same class, yeah, so sometimes it can also be from other class, and then we will, from the same class we can run it like this, as you can see, as here. But sometimes it can be called from other object or the other class. So in this case, for example, here we have the class double. Then the function is called from class double, not from this class, not from calculator class, but from double class. Yeah. So that's the class defined by system, actually, and then we can use it from there. Then we can use it from there. But yeah, so just again from a syntax point of view, if there are no parameters to be provided to the function, so for example do something or print something, then we can also have such cases where you don't need to provide the parameters to the function, and then just simply the function will be called, and that's it. Yeah, so how to call it if you are inside the same class. So if you, like right now we have right now we are in the class calculator, right here, and everything what is inside, like the main method is here, right? So then all the methods from this class can be called without the class prefix. Yeah, so then the method name should be provided, then we open the brackets, and there should be rounded brackets. And then inside these rounded brackets we provide them the parameter, basically the value to the parameter. And yeah, to define a function you need to write its name. You see here, if it's divisibility, so in this case public is used. In our case there's no difference if we use public or private, or in this case we can even use private. Let's find public, and just again, that's at this point it's not really important. Later on we will see the difference. Let's jump back to the presentation. Yeah, so here you have void as the example. Void means that nothing is returned from this function. Yeah? As you can see here, we do not have any return statement. Okay? So that means that we can use void, no return statement, nothing is returned from this method. And inside the method you can write any code you want. So that's the same as if you write the code in main, you can also write the code here. Please note the visibility of the parameters. So the only parameter, like in this case, the only parameter, the only variable available here is this variable provided from here. Nothing else is available. You cannot access this variable or just any variable from here. Yeah, as you remember, if we have the block, if something is defined inside the block, it cannot be available from outside the block. Yeah, it's not possible. That's why everything what is defined in this block, it can only be available from, in this case, that will be from here to here. So outside the block, no availability. The same for the functions. Yeah. So from this function, we cannot access, for example, these variables. Because we have this block, it's open and closed, and we have this block, it's open and closed. So nothing outside this block is available for us. That's why only in this case, yeah, we can only access this operator provided variable. Sorry. Yeah. So the first part is visibility, and in this case it's optional. It's not always optional, because sometimes we need to use it, but in this case, at this point for us, we can define, we can use or not use public. That's up to us. Yeah, if you don't define any, then this will be private. And yeah, more about them we'll discuss a little bit later. Then the type, if no type to be returned, then it will be void. Yeah. So it means that nothing to be returned, and the parameters. Yeah, we can have one parameter, you can have non-parameters, you can have multiple parameters. So we'll later on see it. Let's jump to the next slide. Yeah. So then we have input and we have output. Yeah. Also, as we've seen before, we can also have the output defined under the parameters name. But yeah, this is maybe more advanced case. We will then cover it a little bit later. For us, the most usual approach is that we have the input provided under the parameters, and we have the output which to be returned. Yeah. So then, yeah, the type to be returned should be the same as the type defined at the beginning. So, for example, here I defined Boolean. So here I have Boolean. It means that the return type can be Boolean. I cannot return the string. I cannot return the number. It can only be Boolean. So, yeah, if I have void, I cannot return any type. So just also as the example. So what type is here? Then return should have the same type. Okay, so that's about. Okay, in case you have any questions, if something is not clear, please let me know. So far, yeah. So for example, we may have the function sum. So we can pass our calculator. Keep this opened. Then I go to the function, and here I can define the function that will be public. We can leave it public to make it more simple, and then this will be the function sum. So here we can provide the visibility. It can be public, it can be protected, it can be private. For this case, for this case there will be no difference because we work within the same class. So then we have double, that's the type, and then the method name will be sum, and then we have first variable, then we have second variable, and so here the result will be simple. I return variable 1 plus variable 2. So as the function we define it as sum, and we just simply say that this is procedure which sums to variables. And we can actually call it from here. For example, sum, and then we provide here two values here. And this will be called the and now we can apply the values, and then actually this method to be triggered, so this function will be called. So, for example, we can also have such function like there's no difference. Okay, I'm just not confused. Let's use public. Again, for this point we'll use static. In theory we can skip using static, but in this case the class should be instantiated, the object should be instantiated, so that's object-oriented programming we'll talk later about. So, but for now, let me recreate the void, and void will be print error message. So in this case I'll print error message, and let's say that we have only one error message, that the input is incorrect. So, and then for example in this case we can call the method print error message instead of the directly provided from here. So, and yeah, for example right here, yeah, we'll have different message, but in this case we can reuse our function. So we can see that now we use our function twice. Yeah, we don't need to repeat the same code. So for example right here we can also print that the input is incorrect. Print error message. Okay. So in this case we can see the main advantage of the functions. We can reuse the same code, which in this case is this code. Yeah, in theory we can write something more, not just one line, but I hope you understand that we can add also more lines here. For example, so please don't do it anymore, for example. So just something like that. So just for you to understand, we can have multiple actions here. Yeah. So, and just to not copy paste these two lines several times, we can simply call this one print error message several times, and then this will be reused. Then this is reused, and this will be called multiple times. Yeah, in this case, yeah, here we have this as well. Yeah, of course this will be a little bit different from what we had before, because then we had the exact operation. But yeah, so that's here we can do some manipulations and define the code. Yeah, I mean, so that's what I mentioned about static, and at this point, since we don't touch object-oriented programming, we use static. Yeah, so to answer your question precisely, if object-oriented programming is not used, then we can only use static. When we touch object-oriented programming, we'll talk later about, then we can use, we can skip using static. Yeah, so static, that's if we don't work with object-oriented programming. What is object-oriented programming, we'll talk later about. So for now, just for you to understand what is object-oriented programming, let's imagine the robot. Yeah, and so the robot has its own functions and its own procedures. So in this case, for robot as for one exact robot, yeah, so that's not the class robot, that's one exact actual robot, physical robot. Yeah, I guess you can imagine it. For example, this guy, where was it? Yeah, exactly this guy, this robot. Yeah, so if we have such robot, yeah, we can define it using the class. Then it has these functions here, what this exact robot can do. So in this case, these functions will not be static. And because they belong to this particular robot as one exact, robot, not the whole class of robots in general, but this exact robot. Yes, and in this case, everything what is done by this exact robot, yeah, not this robot, but this exact robot, is considered as the non-static function. Yeah, but that's object-oriented programming. We'll talk about it in details a little bit later. For now, again, if no object-oriented programming used, then only static at this point. But yeah, about the robots and about the objects, we will talk a little bit later. Just maybe a short introduction to object-oriented programming. Yeah, so you can think about what's the difference between the, just for you, again, before we start object-oriented programming, for you as the food for thought maybe to understand what's the difference between the robot as the class of robots, so just not the class from the programming perspective, but I mean in general, in real life, if we say there is the class of robots. Yeah, so what's the difference between the class of robots and what's the difference between the exact robot, exact physical robot and the class of robots? Yeah, that's the thinking about the object-oriented programming. Yeah, and then you can also understand what's the difference between doing the class of the maybe not the class, but the methods which belong exactly to the class of robots, and what are the methods which belong privately to each robot. Yeah, and here's the difference between static and non-static. And static is something that belongs to the class of robots, and in general what can be done, and non-static what belongs to robot, exactly to the robot. But again, that's object-oriented programming. We'll talk later. Yeah, for now maybe that's for you the first food for thought. If you don't understand, that's absolutely fine. We will take object-oriented programming topic later. Yeah, but yeah, for now we use static because we don't touch object-oriented programming. Okay, so in case you have any more questions, please let me know. So then we can jump to the next slide, and yeah, so that's in this case I guess it's maybe a little bit complicated for you to understand, but this is quite from my point of view really interesting thing, and really I can't say C-shies thing that comes from C programming. Yeah, it's C or C++, then this thing is quite popular in these languages, and yeah, also it is, you can see, available in C#. This is called pass by reference. Yeah, so and in this case, if you, that's called pass by reference, and it comes from C program. For example, I can modify this method a little bit to modify this method a little bit, and then I will add another variable here. So this will be the result. Actually, use ref. So hold on. Okay, so that's like this one. I'm not really sure why it uses this approach, that's not correct. Usually let's use this twice here a moment. Yeah, that's interesting because I'm not sure what's shown inside. Of course, the correct syntax is this one, using ref. And how this would work in this case, let's then, so in this case we can use void. And so in this case we will say that result equals var1 plus var2. So in this case we'll have sum, and then we can simply pass the result here. So let's try it out again. It's compiling. Okay, so we have the error. Okay, I think it's unassigned. That's an important thing, and maybe just to not confuse you, we need to assign it. Before, there is one difference. Yeah, between you'll see there's difference between ref and out. So let's start out with one. Try again. Yeah, it says unassigned. It means that the value is not assigned before it is used as the reference variable. So, free must be passed with ref. Okay, so I forgot to use ref here. Yeah, that's need to be used. If you use alt and ref, you'll just add a keyword. You need to go over here. So try again. Probably nothing forgot. Nothing is forgotten now. So I can simply run the operation. Let's see, there it is. Watch time. So, and here we have ref. Why it? Yeah, the presentation is not prepared by me. But so why we see here? That's from C and C++. To be honest, I'm not really sure about C. No, it's C. I guess that was also here. So maybe I can quickly show you as by reference. So if you maybe Google it, then you will see examples from C++ passed by reference. So in C++, there is such syntax that so this at is used. Yeah, and this means that the parameter will be passed by reference. In C#, the syntax is a little bit different. Here we, instead of at sign, not add, but and sign, we simply use ref. So that's the only difference if you take a look on the C++ examples, because C# has some things in common with C++, but not really. Yes, so just please not confuse C++ and C#. These are two different languages, programming languages. But yeah, so from C++ that would be and in C# that's ref. And what are the rules for ref? So basically, before you've seen that we use out. What's the difference between ref and out? Actually, there is not much difference. One difference is that basically what we see here, that ref variable should be assigned. So in this case, the usage of ref value is quite simple. If we pass something by reference, like in this case we use ref, then it means that this variable, actually the variable itself, will be used inside this method, and it can be changed inside this method. Okay, so in simple words, the main need of this ref keyword is that we want to have the ability to change this variable inside the method. Yeah. Otherwise, no ref provided. Actually, we can change. So, for example, we can change something like this. Okay. So we can change variable 1. Okay. So let's run it. Run. So we can change it inside the method. At least there should not be error message. Again, normal, yeah, there won't be error message, but there won't be error message, but yeah, you can see that the value is changed inside the method. But what's the difference? The difference is that this variable, this one, it will not be changed. Yeah. So in this case, you can see that this variable remains the same. Yeah. So in fact, here it is incremented, and the result is 33 plus 10 equals 43. But the variable itself is not changed. And the difference is that if we pass this by reference, like in this case, so we pass it by reference here, so it means that we should also pass it by reference here. So then, now we'll see that the variable will also be changed after the program. So it was the issue. Just tap that here. So we tap on. So it's running. It's compile. Yeah, so it takes a little bit more time than mono execution because the compilation happens here. Meanwhile, yeah, and so now you can see that 34 is changed to 35 at the end. And now to show you. So basically what happens, if there is reference value, then so inside this method we go here, so we have this value 1, it is assigned from there above, then we go inside this method. Then inside this method this value is changed. And then after that, so it's used then in calculation, and then this value is also then used here. Yeah, and it's the same. Yeah, so from programming point of view, what's the difference between ref and ref? From technical point of view. From a technical point of view, it is called pass by reference, and this is technically it works this way. We don't pass the value, we pass the reference. It means that we actually pass the wall variable. In this case, we pass the value only. Yeah. So when we call this method, then it means that on the second position, when we pass something, then we pass the value, not the variable. But in this case, we actually pass the wall variable. Yeah. And then it means that, well, in this case, how it actually works, we pass the value of the variable. Yeah, so here we pass the value of the variable. Pass the value to the variable, it is received here, and from the technical point of view, it creates a new variable. Yeah, so in this case, var2 is considered as the new variable. Right? It is considered as the new variable with separate. Yeah, it's not related to the variable provided from here. Yeah, so now they are not related with each other. So this one just passes the value to this one, and they have nothing in common anymore. Yeah. So they export separate lives. Yeah, so this one is now a new variable with the value provided from there, and we can use it as we want. Yeah, it won't be changed. I mean, no, it will be changed if we change it from here, but that previous variable will not be changed from here. Yeah? They leave now separate lives. Yeah. So this variable 2 and that variable 2, value 2. Remember how to call it? Yeah, value 2. So value 2 and variable 2 now have nothing in common. Yeah, they just value passed, they leave separate. But for this one we actually consider that we pass the same variable. Yeah, so it is called reference, so it passes the reference, and it means that they actually, when we access this variable here, so this variable 1, we actually access variable value 1 and define that. So in this case, this would be the same. It is actually called pointers. So maybe let's not confuse it with pointers. Maybe we will talk about pointers a little bit later. So maybe, yeah, because that pointers is quite a specific thing for C++ and C#. There are pointers, but maybe not in so advanced level as in C++. But yeah, the key point here is that we work with the same variable. Yeah, so in this case, this variable will be the same as the variable there, value 1. So now they are considered as the same variable. So it means that if this variable is changed, then that variable is changed as well. If, in this case, yeah, if this variable is changed, then the value of this variable is changed, then the value of that variable is also changed. From technical point of view, there is no different variable here. This is the same variable as passed to this method. Yeah, that's why it's called reference. We pass reference, we don't pass the value. Yeah. In this case, we pass the variable itself, and here we pass only the value itself. Yeah, in this case, we also pass the variable itself of the value itself. So maybe just let's go back to the previous comment out, and then just to make the code correct, because otherwise we just have some experiments here and not confuse that the program is incorrect. But just from the syntax point of view, do you have any questions? I understand that this may be a little bit tricky, a little bit complicated, so don't worry. We will cover it a little bit later as well. So, but in case you have any questions, then you can ask them. So maybe let's have the 10 minutes break now. During the break, you can also prepare the questions if you want. So, okay, let's see. Okay. Okay, so let's continue. So that's about the passing by reference. So that's yeah. So about the passing by reference, there was one note mentioned that the variable should be initialized. Why it should be initialized? Because it works the same way as if you work with the simple variable. So for example, right here we can say that let's try to define a variable. Okay, we define a variable. Here, so let's try to print it out. For example, in this case it's not initialized, you can see. So we can try to run it. So let's run it. Yeah, and now you can see that there is the build error, and I guess the error should be the same as we see before. So here you can see that use of an assigned local variable. That's because we defined the variable here, but we did not initialize it. The same as for the reference variable. Since we use the reference variable the same way as the simple variable, then we cannot use it without the initialization. And so we should initialize it, and only after that we can use it. Comparing to the out variable, we don't need it for out variable. Why? Because out variable actually creates the copy and it assigns the value directly. So, maybe a moment. So basically, when we use out, then out is not actually used in the way that it simply changes something. It actually creates a new one. Yeah. So, and for out, we don't need. We can use it the same way, in a similar way, but we don't need to. Initialize it. That will be done automatically then. So that's basically the only. So of course, if it's define this out, then we define this out here. Yeah. Done. And now the out will be used. So let's see again, so now we can use it. Sorry, okay, input is incorrect. Let's check why. Input was incorrect. That's because it was double. Okay, so that goes under the second variable. Okay, so that was. Yeah, that's because. Oh no, sorry. interesting. When it was why that was the error. We have the ball. Okay, in a moment, I guess maybe no the reason. Let's try this way. Let's try this way. Let's try it. And let's provide the value now. Yeah? Okay, so that's the interesting thing. Mono compiler uses, at least in my case, it uses commas, but .NET compiler uses dots. Yeah, so there's the difference. Here you can see the difference, and so there are the differences between the compilers. And in this case, .NET compiler compiles the code in the way that it uses the dots, but Mono compiler uses the commas. So in this case, please be careful and check what is used. Normally dots are used, and usually one that Mono compiler asked us to use commas. So that's about out. And the difference is that it actually creates a new variable, and it is returned after that. So yeah, basically the analogy for the functions would be that you have a machine. Yeah, each machine has the input and output. Yeah, for example, the engine as the machine has the input of fuel, and then the output is the actual energy which pushes the, let's say, the car or plane ahead. Yeah. So most of the times we don't know exactly what happens inside, but in fact you know how it works. But in fact you know how to use it, and what is the output needed, and what is input needed, and what is the expected output. Yeah, the same way for the cars. You know that the car engine expects the fuel to be provided as input, and then the output again would be the energy which pushes this car ahead. Okay. So and in fact we don't know, but yeah, in this case, it is known as the interface. So on the top, what we can see, like this schema, there is no implementation mentioned how the machine works, but we see the wall structure, and this is called interface. So we have the interface. It's something like this. There's nothing in details provided, just interface in general. So another analogy would be the mathematics. So as you may know, so we have the function. The function has the input parameters. So usually if it's x or y or z or maybe more parameters. And the function is defined as some kind of way. Usually it's defined as f. If there are multiple functions, then they can be defined as f, g, and so on. And so we have the name. We have this function f, and then we calculate the value of the function, and that's what happens when we call it as f from x, y, and z, and that's the calculated value, the output. And again, for mathematics, if you know that for function, for each input, the input will be the exact combination of values x, y, z. For each input, we should have only one possible returning value. In fact, there can be no value mapped. That's possible, but it can be only one, and no it can be only one exact value possible. Yeah, we cannot like pass the same combination of x, y, z, and then in different cases get different answers. Yeah, that's not possible. The same is for the programming. If we have the function with all the same input parameters, yeah, for object-oriented programming it's maybe different, but let's say for now we work only with statics, and we work on only with static parameters. Then in this case, everything should be the same when we pass the same parameters. Okay, so that's about the function. If you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah, in addition, in programming, in C# in particular, there is such thing like libraries. What does it mean? It means that this is the, as I said, this is the set of functions, this is the set of classes, in fact, which have the functions defined inside, and then we can use this function in the place where the libraries are used. Yeah, and so that's the not key point for us, but a really nice point for us that for such functions, again, we don't know how these functions are implemented, we just simply use them. Yeah, and such collections of actual classes, which contain the functions are called libraries, and grouped from the problem they handle. Yeah, for example, we have this math class. I don't remember, was it? Again, there was this math class we used before. Yeah, here it is. So that's the class which has the operations used for mathematical operations. So then there is also collection class, which has the operations related to the collections, and so on. Yeah, so each class has the related functions related to the usage of the corresponding class. Yeah, from the class name math, we know that this is used for mathematical operations. The same you will see for all the other classes. Yeah, for example, class console. You can see that's related to the console. Yeah, so the operations can be done from console. You can read one, you can write one. So as we have here, we can type console, then we can type dot, and then we can type control space. We can write not line but one exact characters. We can get input, output, set buffer, set dot, and so on and so on. So everything what we can do is console class is related to the console. So and this can be applied to the console. Yeah. So there's a suggestion. Think about the problem you want to solve, and after that, look if exists a library for it. Yeah, that's what I said for the reusability of the code. Yeah. On practice, we don't need to write the code if we already have the code. Yeah. So the same for the libraries. For such actions as we talked before, like sorting. Yeah. For sorting actions, as we see in the example, we have the collections library where we can simply sort everything we want. Yeah. And we don't need to implement the sorting operation by ourselves. It's already implemented. What we simply need to do, we just simply need to call the method and then do the sorting, and it's done automatically without any logic to be provided. Okay. So the last one, the drawback you have to study how the interfaces work. What should I give as input? What do I get as output? Yeah. That's something actually similar to the for example car engine again. Majority do not know how the car engine works and what are the exactly processes happen inside and how the physics works there, but everyone, but most, just simply use the cars. Simply drive the cars, and that's it, without any really understanding how physically this process works. The same is for the programming. You should actually know how to turn how to drive. Yeah, so you should know how to use your car. You should know how to maintain your car. You should know what your car expects. Yeah, has the fuel. Yeah, you should put the right fuel inside, not the fuel the car does not expect. But yeah, so you don't really think about the processes happen there. The same is for the programming. You should actually know how to use the interfaces, the methods, the classes, what is the output expected, and later on we'll see what are the exceptions expected for the method calls, for the functions. Yeah, the exceptions will also be separate topic there, and yeah, that's actually only related to the usage of the methods. Yeah, and what you get as the input, what you need to provide as the input, and what you get as the output. And so in case you have any questions, please let me know. Yeah, so in general, what are the key steps, the key points of using the functions? So first of all, you hide unnecessary details from the users of your functions. So again, if we go back to the car, imagine that everyone will have such situation that to be able to drive the car, so each driver should know from scratch, from the beginning to the end, how the physics of car movement work. So imagine this situation. Same is for the programming. Not everyone, the majority, do not know how the code works, and the majority does not really need to know how the code works, right? We just simply want to use something and move on, and we save our time. Yeah, of course that the driver can read the manual about the car, how the physics work there, but this would just simply take more time without any real gain, because so you simply need to drive the car. Maybe you'll find some details and maybe this will help you, but so majority you just need to drive the car and that's it. So that's first point. We don't really need to see what's going on there. So next point is make it easier to join joint implementation work. So what does it mean? Again, as you already did for Git. Yeah, so as you remember, you worked in group. Yeah, so you had you had your team members in group, and yeah, so you were collaborating. You had this common Git repository, so you actually have this common folder. So the same way you can also work on the common code. Yeah, so for example, let's say that your code implements the let's say the movement of the robots, for example, and then so let's say that one member of your team develops writes the function how the robot can move, then another team member will write the function how the robot will, let's say, eat, then another will define the function how the robot sleeps, and so on. So you can split your work, and then each member can write the function, then at the end maybe another member unifies all these functions in one, and then the robot is ready, for example. So you can split the implementation. Yeah, it's also easier for to organize the work for one developer. Yeah, because sometimes you may see the functions, programs with thousands of lines of code. That's also possible. And of course, as you may understand, it's quite complicated to read such programs, especially if you just imagine that you have thousands of lines when you have just all these procedures from the first line to the last line, without any functions, without any different separations, without any different abstractions, and so on. Yeah. So just imagine how this would look like, and how to maintain this code, and how to do any changes in such code. Yeah, I had such experience in my life where I actually had to rewrite all these codes written by other colleagues. Yeah, so in practice that's really hard to work with such code, and that's why we need to use the functions to first of all to reuse the code, yeah, so we can reuse the same code several times, and then to also structurize the code, yeah, so we can see step by step. So so this is the way how we explain the user what's happening here. So for example, you have function, so function does something, then when the not user, the programmer, when the programmer, other programmers see your code, so the programmer navigates to this exact part, and it sees that I'm located now under this method. For example, if it's the robot method, robot movement method, so I know that inside this method robot moves. So this method is called when the robot is moving. Then I may understand what's the purpose of this part of code, when this code is needed, and when this code may be reused, and how actually I can deal with this code. And also to maintain this code, because in this case we also separate the part of our code from another code. And it makes it more safe. It makes it safer because if we do the changes in one part, then other parts are not touched. So as the result, it's easier to maintain such code, and after that, later on also, it's easier to search for the issues in such code. That's what's said in this point. Then the next point also keeps your code manageable. Yeah, so you can do some adjustments there. Then define your workspace. Yeah, that's true, because if no functions is used, then the code is usually amiable. If there are lots of lines of code, then that's usually looks like a mess. Okay, so there's no structure, no actual sequence, so really hard to understand something from there. So, and so here you may see some hint. As soon as you see more than 3 lines of code repeated 2 or more times in your code, then you can collect them in a function. That's actually true. So maybe there may be some discussions about how many lines of code should be there, but that's true. Also in some modern, not modern, I would say, but we can call it modern approaches of the programming. There may be such guidelines that almost everything should be structurized in the methods, like every action. Yes, so if it's just simply one line of code and it is used once, that also sometimes then in such cases you also need to define the method, just to structurize your code correctly. Yeah, so that will be, for example, if you have the actions defined for the robot again, for example, then you will have, let's say, 5 methods with the actions which have 1,000 lines of code, and then you have another method which has only, let's say, 2 lines of code. Then, in theory, you can escape defining such functions, such method. But on practice, what you will have that all your actions are defined as the almost all the 5 actions are defined as the methods, and then one action is simply defined as inside the code. So in this case, the structure is not really correct. Yeah, because if you let's say if you use different approaches for your code, that's maybe not good. You should select one common approach you use for all your parts of code and then just implement this approach. So otherwise, if you have the functions in one place and don't have the functions in another place, then this may be the not really fine from the structural point of view. And yeah, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. Of course, if something is already invented, if something is already defined, for example, sort method, so again, use the collection process, then we can use this sorting method without defining our own method. Alright, so I guess we finished with the functions. We will have more details about them under object-oriented programming topic, so don't worry. Do we have any questions? Maybe? No? Okay, so there are 30 minutes left. Then we'll have a topic about the arrays. Actually, the topic about the arrays is quite large. Maybe maybe a short introduction without a presentation. We'll start with the presentation tomorrow. Then for the arrays, just to think about that, we already have talked about the collections a little bit. So what does it mean? It means that you have simply one variable with multiple items inside. So let's say that you have the box, for example, and you may have some different items inside the box. So then from the programming perspective, how can we define such a box? Or even for those who knows mathematics, for example, the matrix. So you have the matrix, you have the vectors, and how they can be represented from programming point of view. Same for the box. For example, you have different items located inside the box, and so the question may be how this to be represented. How to represent this from the programming point of view. And we'll see that for such need we will use arrays. So arrays is the simple option. Then later on we will talk about the data structures. So we will cover the collections, and then we will see what are the differences between the collections and arrays and how to use them. Okay, but let's start talking about arrays tomorrow, because this will be the topic which we'll then ask some time to discuss. Okay, so any questions maybe? So you can take a look on the so if you have time, you can take a look on the practical assignments. You can move on with them. So for the check, there was the question about the practical assignments. When will I check them? Most likely I will check them during the weekend, because the workdays are quite full for me now. So then I will get them checked most likely at the end of the week. And so for now there won't be any marks. I'll check if the assignment is submitted, and if it works correctly, if it is correct, then I'll just simply mark that it is ready and it's really correct. It's completely correct for now. Okay, so what else? I guess for now we know we want to talk about for today. I guess the arrays, as I said, we will then cover them tomorrow. Okay, so then okay, for today, thank you for your attention then, and then meet you all tomorrow. Okay.